Today I want to talk about a new leveraged trading platform that has come out that is actually really cool, and I think it's nice because it really simplifies the leverage trading process. One thing that I have seen and heard from many people who are newer to crypto is that leverage trading can be quite complicated and quite difficult, and they don't necessarily understand some of the nuances, and that can get them into trouble sometimes. Now, my first recommendation would be if you don't understand leverage trading, start and definitely do understand before you start trading. But this is also a simplified platform that I think could help a little bit with that type of perspective. And so I want to show you a little bit more today about CoinFutures, and we can go on ahead and discuss a little bit more about that. Again, of course, a disclaimer before we talk too much about this. If you do not understand leverage trading, you should definitely make a concerted effort to learn before you start trading, just because leverage trading is not without its risks. It is definitely more risky than just trading spot. You can make a lot more, but that does also mean you can lose a lot more. So you just really need to make sure. But this is a platform that I do think is very interesting and has some major, upside in terms of the simplicity and how they're actually kind of portraying leverage trading in a sense. I do think it might make it a little bit easier to understand as you're trying to learn. So starting out, let's go take a look at CoinFutures. CoinFutures, you can see here, is you can trade crypto futures on Bitcoin and Ethereum. You can predict price moves in real time and instant onboarding and no KYC. You could trade up to 1000x leverage. And let me be very clear, I would strongly discourage any use of leverage this high. I never use leverage this much. I hardly even use things like 100x leverage, which is 1/10 of this. So I would say strongly discourage using of leverage that high. But, if you're wanting to do that, it's totally up to you. And then also no KYC or exchange accounts, and you can cash out at any time. Now you can see here's a screenshot of the UI. Really cool, actually. So you could see it's, this is the Bitcoin USD. It's just a mock-up here, but you can essentially predict will price go up or down, and then you can bet essentially how much you think that's going to go up or down. And then you can go and you can put in a multiplier here. Now, again, 1x is kind of the lowest risk, and then, of course, 1000x is extreme risk. Again, I strongly discourage using leverage this high, but you, of course, can do whatever you want. And then from there, you essentially kind of place your bet, and then you just watch it go up or down. And I think it's kind of cool because they've made it more kind of like sports betting in a sense. They've simplified some of the nuances there. If you are more of an advanced trader, maybe you'll like this, maybe you won't, I don't know. But this is something that is kind of cool because you can see here, you're essentially picking your wager, you're essentially putting your multiplier on that, and then you have your bust price of essentially like when you would lose, you'd lose all of your wagered amount here. So that's essentially how it works. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Also, if you are in the money, you'll essentially kind of pick to what price you think it will go to. If it does hit that price, then great, but you also can essentially cash out before it hits that price if you're thinking that price might start to go down or whatever, or you just want to lock in some profits, you can do that as well. So a pretty simple and straightforward way here they're calling it coin poker, which I think is interesting. I do think it kind of makes sense because they're kind of making a little bit more of some binary decisions where if you've traded before, that it is a little bit that there's a lot more nuance to it. And so I think that the fact that they've simplified it here is kind of interesting. If you are interested, of course, you just register and download Coin Poker. You can make a deposit with USDT, Bitcoin, or ETH. The thing that is really cool is you can use Bitcoin or ETH as kind of like your underlying amount. This is important because let's say if you have you buy Solana staking or using Bitcoin as your underlying asset, and then you have Bitcoin, over that time Bitcoin doubles and Solana triples. Well, technically you've made 6 times on your money, right? Because you're essentially tripling your Bitcoin, but then Bitcoin has also doubled. So then you're doubling that again in terms of fiat value, right? So I think it's really cool. I personally love trading in the asset denominated. However, again, this is another layer of leverage, right? Because if Bitcoin goes down 50%, then you have that kind of working against you as well from a cash perspective. So I personally like using Bitcoin and Ethereum as kind of my my asset-backed collateral. But if you want, you can also just use USDT as well. So that there is a little bit of a nuance there too if you are interested in learning more about that. And then also you can see here, you just open the crypto futures tab and then you start playing. So it's pretty straightforward there. You could essentially, it shows you how to trade, do all that type of stuff. And then also the accepted payment methods, what you can deposit, all of that type of stuff. And then they have leaderboards. So you can essentially compete with others in terms of how they're trading. You can look at what they're doing, their best bets, their wins, all of that type of stuff. So that is something as well if you are interested in looking into it. And then you can see, you've got the fast time real action, you've got the strategy, and then you can compete with others as well. So lots of different stuff there. Also, if you are interested and you have some questions, they have a list of frequently asked questions. You might be able to get your question asked or answered here if you are interested. So overall, it's a pretty simple, pretty straightforward platform. I do think, in my opinion, I personally do leverage trade quite a decent bit. I've done quite well with it so far this year, but it's not without its risks. So you do really need to understand the risks. And as long as you do understand the risks, then it can be a really, really profitable way to do quite well within the crypto market. So overall, hopefully you found the information in the video useful. If you did, of course, like, subscribe, all that type of good stuff. And then I do have that link in the description below to CoinFutures if you are interested in getting signed up and want to give it a try. So overall, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.